Hello, and thank you for attending today's webinar on breaking down the solar quote and hosted by Solar Washington. This webinar is part of our ongoing series of webinars in 2021, addressing a range of topics relevant to solar deployment in the state of Washington and serving a variety of constituencies, including homeowners, industry personnel, government and nonprofit personnel, students, educators, and others with an interest in solar energy. My name is Patrick Nugent, and I'm the Executive Director of Solar Washington. Today, Solar Washington welcomes Jay Larson, Sales and Design Engineer for Spokane-based PCI Renewables, Incorporated, and is on the board of Solar Washington. Jay will walk through some sample quotes for adding a solar PV system to a home or applicable to a business as well. The goal will be to better understand what's in a quote and how to compare quotes to one another. So after Jay's formal presentation, we'll take questions and answers. What you can do is you can simply type in your questions in the questions pane on your screen. And what I'll do is I'll screen the questions and recite those questions to Jay later on at the conclusion of his presentation. We'll try to get in as many questions as possible, time permitting, and the webinar should not exceed 60 minutes in length, so you can all get on with your evenings. So Solar Washington is a 501c3 nonprofit organization which provides solar educational resources for the consumer as well as industry personnel. We are a small but impactful organization with 1 staff member and 9 board members, many of whom work in the industry and others who do not, but who are advocates for solar energy in other ways. Our board members live throughout the state of Washington, including the Spokane area, the Tri-Cities area, Vancouver, Washington, Bellingham, Olympia, and the greater Puget Sound area. Our activities include webinars such as this one today, our online resources, attendance, and hosting of in-person events during non-COVID times, and the annual Washington State Solar Summit, which is an annual solar conference which takes place typically in the fall. We are a remote-based organization serving all of Washington, and you can find a host of other resources on our website at solarwa.org. We have an additional webinar coming up in May, as you see on your screen, Tuesday, May 18 at 12 noon, and this is a free webinar. It's highlights recapping this year's legislative session with our board member, Sarah Forpaul, who also works for the Department of Commerce. So she'll give a rundown of bills that relate to energy policy here in the state of Washington. And also, you can check out additional webinar recordings from earlier this year, as well as a couple from last year. What I'll do is I'll share with you a link to those free recordings so you can check them out at any time that makes sense for you all. And by the way, if you would like to attend the 2021 legislative session recap, you can register at solarwa.org/calendar. And once again, it is free to check it out. I want to take a moment and thank our business and corporate sponsors and members. These are companies mainly throughout the state of Washington who have given their support to Solar Washington so that we can do presentations like this one, as well as other events, provide the resources that we do. So I want to thank all of these sponsors and business and members. We also have individual members and who are also professional members of the organization. These are folks who donate to the organization, again, to help us do what we do. And if you are not a member and or if you would like to, if you derive value from this particular webinar or other things we do, please consider donating to our organization. You could make a general donation and or just become a member of the organization. And as the screen says, go to solarwa.org for more information on how to do that. So thank you in advance for your support. We greatly appreciate it. So some housekeeping before we hand it over to Jay. Everyone will be muted, stay muted throughout the presentation. At the end of the presentation, as I mentioned, we'll take questions, time permitting. We will have time to take questions. So, and remember to type in your questions in the questions pane. I will follow up with a brief survey after the presentation, 2 questions, getting your feedback about this presentation and also asking for your ideas for future activities and presentations from Solar Washington. And we will make this recording available in the next day or two. So If you're unable to check out its entirety, or if you want to check it out again, you can do so. And as I said, I will send a link on how to do that. So again, thank you all for attending. I want to thank Jay for the time and energy for for being able to deliver this presentation today. So, but first I hand it off to Jay, I'm going to launch a poll. This is to gauge what your current situation is. That most of you attending this presentation today, I believe, are homeowners. So I figured let's ask a quick question to see kind of where you are at, as it were. So, excuse me. So the question on your screen, what is your current situation? So take a moment to answer those questions. And the first question, or first statement rather, I'm currently reviewing multiple solar bids. The next one, I expect to review multiple solar bids in the near future. The third one, I'm in the early phase of my solar research, so you're just kind of starting out gathering information. Or the fourth one, I already have solar installed. So take a moment to tell us why you're here, as it were, and I'll give another couple of seconds here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and 3, 2, 1. I'm going to close the poll, and we'll check out the results. Okay, so looking at the results that you see on your screen, 3% of you are currently reviewing multiple solar bids. 13% looking to review multiple bids in the near future. Vast majority of you are in the research phase, so this is great. It's all great, but it's good to know that you're here to gather information. And 3% of you rather, already have solar installed. So again, thank you very much for taking the poll. I am going to now hand it off to Jay, who will give his presentation. And as I said, we'll take questions in the next after Jay's presentation. So let's see, Jay, hang tight, and I will send it off to you.
All right. Well, good to be here with everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to make a quick check here to see that everything looks good, and that hopefully you see the slides just fine.
Jay, I can hear you fine, and I can see the slides, and I can hear you fine.
Excellent. So if anything does come up, just let me know. Switching over here to our full screen bit, and we're going to look at solar quotes. There's a lot out there as far as how to discern what it is you're looking at when you get quotes for adding solar to your home or even your business for that matter. Today's presentation will focus a little bit more on the residential side, but the same details and tips may be used for commercial application as well. Before we get into the quotes themselves, I don't know, but I have seen some really great ads out there that says people will pay me to put solar on my roof, and there's some kind of special program out there that says that the state's going to provide something, or my house is specially suited maybe for solar. And a lot of that seems kind of surprising. I have gone ahead and I've got this little ad that I put together, and you might see even a web page that looks similar that says, hey, you'll get this for free, you don't have to pay any money for it, it's going to change your life, a whole bunch of things like that sound really good. And the question is kind of like, why are these ads out there? They're kind of misleading, and a big part of it is some companies use tactics like this to get their leads. As far as I know, and anyone else that I've talked to, there isn't a special program from a local utility or from the state that's going to pay you money to put solar. If you have a meter on your house, it's because you're connected to the grid, not because your house is specially suited for solar. But these things are put out there for attention gathering purposes, to get you to take a look and see them or call them, click on their ad and start that conversation about, oh, what does solar look like on my house? And is it something that might be of benefit to me? So they can be difficult to look at, and maybe you've all seen things like that. So hopefully some of the things here help to understand why they're there. Not a big fan of them personally, but that's why they are out there. But let's go ahead and move on then and say, wait, are you looking to decide on solar? Looking at quotes, it's always good to get at least 3 quotes if you can. Some folks live in areas where there's really not a local installer, and getting multiple quotes can be a challenge. But the first place to start, of course, is where to find an installer. Ways you can look for installers are checking with folks that you know or even don't know who have solar and ask for a referral. Check with your local utility company. Sometimes they have lists on their website of companies that do installations in the area. Of course, always searching online is a good idea. You'll get lots of research there. When you get an address or information on a solar installer, go ahead and go to Google Maps or Bing Maps or anything like that and look up where that office is at to see how local is this company. Are they somebody who's here? Do they have an office nearby, or are they from Arizona or Texas or somewhere else? I say that a lot because a lot of the installers in the US really that I've talked to, and especially in Washington, we try to promote staying local. And there's good reason for that. If you do solar and you stay with a local company, you get a lot of local experience. And if you ever need service, generally it's a lot easier to get when it's coming from in town than across the state or out of state. So other places you can look is the Solar Washington website or contacting Solar Washington. I'm always happy to help. WASIA is another group here in Washington, the Washington Solar Industries Association. They're a group of solar installers banded together, a good resource to go to. And certainly there could be other ideas that you hear about. But let's go ahead and move on here. So we're looking at solar. We're going to get a few quotes. I went ahead and created 3 actual quotes that I just used a fictional location and picked a house on a map that's a commercial house, a manufactured home, and then ran some quotes so we could do some comparisons. So let's take a look. So our friend here got some quotes. They went to SunMonkey, Bud Solar, and Sunny Wave Solar. Here are our 3 fictional companies. And as you can see, the system size quoted in all 3 they're all the same. They're all 7.92 kilowatts, and that's roughly 24 solar panels. The picture below shows a little bit of what that layout might look like. All of these numbers and items are taken from the quotes and just organized so it's hopefully a little easier to see. The one thing that might stand out right away is a different cost, and quite a bit different. SunMonkey offers $25,000 for their installed price, $19,000 on Bud Solar, and $20,000 on Sunnywave Solar. So we have something that's a bit different to look at. Sometimes that system size will vary. And then there's different information, net payments, simple payback, how much you're going to save over the lifetime of the system, your monthly savings, environmental benefits, incentives that kick in and help pay for the system. We have some numbers in this comparison that certainly make it a little bit confusing to say, oh, how can I really get a good idea of what each company is offering and hopefully understand what might be best for me. So we'll look at some of these key details one by one. So it's like comparing costs. There are a few reasons why you'll see costs vary from quote to quote. It might be the type of equipment that's being used. Some equipment might be a little more name brand. Microinverters and string inverters, depending on the size of the system, one may be a little bit more expensive than the other by the time the amount of equipment adds up. Does the installer sub out any of their work? They might get a little help from other installers. They might not do the electrical portion. They might have to hire electricians for things or go to an engineering firm to get their permitted drawing plans. Are there any HOA fees or meter fees? Quite often, application fees or meter fees will vary depending on the utility. And that can cause a change in costs. Of course, for yourself as a homeowner, hopefully you're getting your utilities fees, if any, are applied. So, but sometimes in the quote, fees for applications or meters or stuff like this won't be included in the total cost. It'll be a cost that will be discussed after a contract is collected. So that might be a good question to ask when you're talking to potential installers is, hey, are there other fees that aren't included in this quote that I need to be aware of? A great comparison tool. I think this is the most common way to really look at quotes, and that's looking at the cost per watt. And in the table, I went to all three quotes and looked at a cost per watt. And that's simply taking the overall cost and dividing it by the size of system, the number of watts held by those solar panels. And as we can see, we go from a high of $3.16 a watt down to $2.40 a watt. So that's a good way to have a good comparator. Now, obviously, we have one. SunMonkey's quite a bit higher, and as we look at these comparisons, we'll dig in a little bit more to see just where these differences in costs are coming from. So we'll move on to our next slide here. Performance. Looking at string inverters versus microinverters, or premium panels versus standard panels. This might affect costs for sure if you were to say, hey, one installer has a higher cost because they're using the highest quality solar panel. It has a high efficiency on it. The next installer is just using a standard solar panel, so the efficiency isn't as high. What we'll see the difference there is the standard solar panel might cost less than the premium panel, but the amount of energy produced will be higher with the premium panel. So it's the savings that you get greater with the premium panel than with the standard panel, where it makes up the difference in cost. I can say that I've run this scenario several times, and a premium panel in a residential situation, in my search and tests, the premium panel has never won. In large systems where you have a lot of solar panels, hundreds of panels, thousands of panels, that's where that premium panel gets the edge for its better performance. But the difference between the two is fairly marginal, especially on small systems. How is the system designed? This is also a performance issue. Looking at shading. Did the installer come out and do a site evaluation? Are they looking at the east side of the roof or the west side of the roof? Does one get more shade than the other? This is a big factor in how the system is designed to how the system will perform. And of course, the better performance the system has, the more energy that's created, the less you buy from the utility. So going back to the cost, it creates a system that will pay itself off faster and have a higher financial benefit in the end. If you wanted to make some comparisons too, you could look at the quotes you have and say, okay, well, what solar panel is there? What inverter is there? And hop online and just put that information in. Hey, this is a Silfab 330 watt solar panel, and you can get what the search results come back on the price of that panel. Installers will have better pricing than you find online because they're buying through wholesale dealers, and sometimes they're able to buy in bulk and get a better price on their equipment by buying a container full of solar panels versus 20 solar panels at a time, and they can pass that savings on to the end customer. So equipment and performance, placement, system design really do affect performance. Let's take a little closer look at a few of the numbers from our quotes. It's quite interesting because I did use a premium panel for Sunny Wave Solar, a standard panel for Bud Solar, and then kind of another, more of a standard panel, but its efficiency is quite good for SunMonkey. And I will take a look at that in a moment, but the annual energy production estimated is very close for all three systems. Same with the amount of power that is estimated to be purchased from the utility, the amount of power expected that you would buy with solar versus without. And you can see those numbers there in the table. So all systems really perform fairly equally. If you were to get quotes where one installer comes back with, let's say, 10 kilowatt hour or a 10 kilowatt system, maybe 30 solar panels versus 24 solar panels in an 8 kilowatt system, you would see more production, and you'd buy less from the utility. Why this happens? Maybe the designer felt with what they were doing, there was only so much room, or they were looking at the end cost and trying to find that right cost point for the budget that you could have discussed with them before. There are various reasons, but I was trying to make these quotes fairly even so we could look at the details to separate them and not have too many things that were greatly different that might cause further confusion. Okay, so I was talking about comparing the equipment. Here I have in the table the string inverters on SunMonkey quote and the Bud Solar quote, and microinverters on the Sunny Waves quote. And the efficiency isn't too much different. A string inverter typically is more efficient. When you get your microinverters up on the roof, they get a bit warm and they do lose efficiency, but 2% in a small system is going to be fairly marginal. You're not going to see a vast difference in system performance and energy production. The same goes with the solar panels. A Qcell panel is quite popular in use, high efficiency on it. It's really a standard panel in its price point. Silfab and Qcells are right in the same price point market-wise. The Qcell has a nominal efficiency, which is a little bit lower. And then the Panasonics are considered a little bit more of a high-end premium panel. And you can see their efficiency not that much greater. There are other panels out there with higher efficiencies, pushing 21, maybe even 22%. But again, performance ends up being marginal, excuse me. Other things to ask about and to understand when you're comparing is in the warranty and service. When you find out about warranties on equipment, are the warranties for the product or the parts different from the performance? Many solar panels will have maybe a 12-year warranty on their product, but a 25-year warranty on their performance. Seeing what the difference is there. In the warranty, if you ever use it, does it include parts and labor, or is it a parts only warranty? Because if it's parts only, you might have a situation 10 years after your install goes in that a microinverter, for example, will fail and need to be replaced. The company will send out a new microinverter, but you still need to pay the service fee to have somebody come out and change that microinverter. And those warranties really vary by company. Is the warranty subject to change? Some warranties have changed over the time. A few years ago, I saw companies drop the labor warranty, that they only decided to go with the parts being warranted and not provide the funds to pay for the labor part of the warranty. So is it subject to change, and does that mean anything for the equipment that's in your quote? And then what kind of maintenance might be needed? Generally, there's not much maintenance for a solar system. Ideally, it'll sit on the roof or on a pole or on the ground the way it's set up and just do its thing. There's always online monitoring, so you can take a look and see how it's performing. Hopefully your installer has access to your system as well, and they can monitor it. And if there's any problems, they will be able to respond and get back to you. And help you out in that respect. So just a few things with the equipment is understanding what kind of equipment is out there, what they're offering in their quotes, and the warranties on that equipment. Again, the performance plays a small role, but I don't think it's as big an issue as some of these other items like the cost or the warranty. One thing I want to circle back to a little bit is in the cost, is paying for the system and looking at financing. understanding the total cost of the system is really important. You might see a number on the quote, but it might not reflect the total cost that you would end up paying. I had mentioned that maybe the utility has an application fee or a meter fee, and sometimes that won't be in the quote. So that would be additional costs not seen. And this is a tip I came across in preparing, and it's my super tip, is ask for the cash cost of the system for your quote. And the reason why I say that is some quotes, they have financing built into their total cost. So what you're seeing is the total cost to you in that, but you might not see the interest you might be paying or the financing costs of the quote separated from the cash cost. In our breakdown here that we have, SunMonkey, I set them up with a 0 down, no interest payment plan. But all of the financing costs are in that price. So that's why I had them at a higher cost of $25,000 for their quote. They have a loan term. I say loan term. I'm not a financial pro. I don't do a lot of the financial part of helping customers and do loans and so forth. Not long ago, Solar Washington hosted the Solar Financing 101 with Shannon Ellis Brock, and I would recommend going back and watching that and getting some tips there. There's also a lot of good tips to keep in mind in general when getting quotes as well in that webinar. You can also talk to your local bank and just take your questions to them and see if a loan agent is available or someone who can just walk you through the information that you have, because they're your bank. They should be able to help you out in that respect. But we'll go back down to the table here. SunMonkey, looking at no interest, 0 down, you might be paying a payment that works really well for your budget. Under $200 a month, not much different than maybe what the utility was. But in the end, when we take out the financing costs, we find that there's just over $4,000 just in the financing cost, and that their actual cost for the cash quote might have been very close to $21,000, making it a little bit more comparable to Bud Solar and Sunnywave Solar. In Bud Solar here, we see I did a 4% simple interest loan with a 5-year term. So monthly payment is kind of high there. We're looking at just about $350. But in 5 years, it's paid for above the cost of the $19,000 that you would see on your quote. Consider the interest in the loan that you might get. In this scenario here, almost $2,000 in the loan interest fees. So in the end, the total cost is going to be close to $21,000 versus the $19,000 on the quote. And then Sunnywave Solar, I just kept as a straight cash scenario, and sometimes installers will ask for maybe 50% to start so they can go out and buy all the equipment. And then once the project is completed, the second 50%. Of course, being straight cash, the total cost on the quote of $20,000 will end up being your end total cost. So hopefully that'll help in looking at the financing details there. Another question that might pop up is batteries. So I wanted to take a moment to address batteries. If there are batteries or you're looking at a hybrid system with battery backup, a few things to keep in mind is the type of battery that you might be quoted. Lead acid batteries, sealed batteries, AGM batteries, they're all quite similar in their use. You have about twice as much storage as what you use, and this is on purpose so that the batteries stay healthy for a longer period of time. You get more use out of them than the lithium-based batteries. And there's a lot of different chemistries out there: lithium ion, lithium iron, lithium cobalt. I won't go into too many of the chemistry details there, but the lithium-based batteries do come at a higher cost. But there's an upfront cost and a lifetime cost. A lead acid or an AGM battery bank, you might get 10 kilowatt hours of storage, which might be enough to see you through the night during a power outage. You might get a battery bank like that for $5,000 to $6,000, where a 10 kilowatt hour storage bank in lithium might cost closer to $10,000. I think what I've seen in the work I've done is that the lithium tend to cost about 40% more, roughly speaking, up front. But the lithium batteries usually have about a 10-year warranty versus a 3 to 5-year warranty on the lead acid versions. And they have the ability to last from 18 to 25 years. Lithium batteries quite typically expected to last the standard lifetime of a system. And when we say lifetime, we're usually looking at a 25-year period. A lead acid battery bank, you'll probably have to replace 2 times in that same lifetime period for the lithium. So where you might pay $10,000 for a lithium battery on day one, and let's say $5,000 for the lead acid battery bank, over 25 years, you might replace that battery bank on the lead acid side twice, and your total cost will end up being $15,000. So lifetime cost on the lithium is less. Comparing the size of the battery bank too. If you get a quote says, hey, you have 4 kilowatt hours of stored energy in our quote, and here's your cost. And the next quote comes and says you have 10 kilowatt hours of stored energy, and here's our cost. I would expect the second quote to be a bit higher because of that. But in that, just seeing how large of a battery bank is there, and of course, the more battery storage you have, the longer you can go without needing to recharge those batteries. So that's a good thing to be talking to a potential installer is how long will the batteries last? And then do I need a sub panel? A sub panel would be a small electrical panel for the items in your home you want to have powered in the event of a electrical or a power outage, excuse me. So it might be some outlets so you can keep your phone charged, a few lights, your refrigerator, freezer, a few items like that. If you don't have a sub panel, there could be additional cost to put that sub panel in. Not always a requirement, but if we put 10 kilowatt hours of battery storage onto a home and it's disconnected from the grid and the home goes under its normal use, washing machine goes on, dryer goes on, TV, radio, whatever, the 10 kilowatt hours of storage is going to get used up pretty quick. And in an outage situation, we want to make sure the important loads, the essential loads, have power until the utility can repair those lines. Of course, in longer outages, hopefully the solar is recharging that battery, or a small generator can be used as well to charge the battery. So that's something worth talking to an installer about is if I do hybrid system and add batteries, how much battery storage might I need, and how will a generator be used to help in that system? Quite often I'm talking to folks to say a smaller generator can be used just to recharge the battery, and the battery can be set up to provide the energy for the home. Battery brand, Tesla battery, very famous, does cost a little bit more because of the name that's on the packaging, where it comes from. And then warranties and service too. If the battery has any issues, will your installer help you with that? It's a little bit of a different world with batteries. So those are all good things to keep in mind if you're looking at batteries. I want to look at tangibles, and this might be a little broken. My notes came here pretty quick, but there's more than just looking at the cost or the performance or warranties or things like that. And it's the companies themselves. Who are you going to do business with? Are you going with a local company? I mentioned early on that we're all kind of big on staying local, all the installers, because they'll know local trends and things about weather. I have that in there because there's an install in Spokane where solar panels went up to create kind of a car awning scenario. And that was done by a company out of Arizona. And if you're in the right areas of Arizona, you will get a lot of winter activity. But generally, most of Arizona is known for its heat. Wintertime came, the install was there, snow built up on those panels, and cars didn't fit fully underneath the panels, and as they were driving out, the snow would slide off the panels and onto the cars, doing a little bit of damage. Not such a great scenario. So just understanding the local area is good to know. So stay local. Are they licensed, bonded, and insured? If you were to do an online search for what should I know about my solar installer? 10 questions to ask or something like that. Do they have a business license? Have they done work in the area? You can even see on their site, they might have some work that you've actually seen. You'll recognize a photo from their website from one of their jobs, and then you can check it out. Another important thing is do they provide support after the install is in? Will they be with you for the life of the system to say, hey, if there's a problem, give us a call. We'll come and do maintenance. We'll check in on the system. We'll help you out. And maybe you want to grow that system in the future, and they'll be more than happy to come back and continue to help you and support you with your solar system. So I have the last note there. Is there an on-site evaluation provided? And it's always good if an installer can get out and take a look at your property and look at the install and kind of avoid some unseen things. Looking on a map online is one thing, and that's great for an initial quote. It helps save them time and save you time. But when it's time to get serious and you really think you've got the right installer, hopefully they'll come out and do a visit before you go to contract. There's also intangibles. And I want to touch base here is things that are more of a feel. Do you feel good about the company or the salesperson you're talking to? Are they pushy, or there's a lot of pressure? There shouldn't be really any need for pressure sales, and the folks you talk to should be knowledgeable. If they don't have the questions to your, or the answers to your questions, they should be able to say, hey, you know, I don't know about that, but there's someone here that does. Let me go find out and get that answer for you. Maybe they'll send you an email as a follow-up for those kinds of questions. Another thing is just, you can go to reviews and see what people are saying about them. Avoid buyer's remorse. When you get to the point, hey, I'm ready to buy, are you comfortable with that cost? One thing that is good is getting pushed into or feeling almost obligated to buy that solar system. And even though it's going to pay itself off and perform well, don't put yourself in a financial strain where now your budget's very tight because you've added solar. I think that's a good thing to avoid. As much as I want to advocate solar and putting it on every roof, the stress of finances is just not worth it. So a few intangibles to keep in mind. And really, I'd say, trust your gut. If you're talking with someone, you've gone through the process and you feel real comfortable with them, and you've got a good relationship going, then I'd feel good about that. That's a good intangible to keep in mind. But sometimes it doesn't go so well. You feel like you've been had. And so I just wanted to provide a few resources here. If you feel like maybe you're being pushed, or a company is not treating you well, or you've bought a system and you're just not happy and you feel like you need to get your voice heard and talk to somebody, talk to the Department of Consumer Protection. There's a link here. Obviously, it's not one that you can click on, but this is the site to go to, or look up the Washington Department of Customer Protection and reach out and let them know. You can go to the Better Business Bureau. That's another resource where, you know, they're keeping track of businesses and rating them. So that's a good place to go. And you're welcome to contact Solar Washington. We have some resources on our website. And again, that's what we're here for. We're here to help solar happen in the state of Washington. And then leave a review too. Our reviews help benefit others, not if it's a bad situation, if it's a good situation. Leave that review for those installers so that other people can benefit from it and maybe have a little easier time or feel better about the decision they might make for going solar. In general, just looking at solar, if you're out there, you're shopping around, you have a lot of questions, do a search. Hop online and say, hey, how to compare solar quotes. There's a lot of good articles, 10 steps, 5 steps, many questions, however, that are out there. Solar Washington has resources as well on our website. Not to say it too many times, but a great resource, and I hope it's something that you'll use and tell other people about to check us out and take advantage, take benefit of the resources that we put together and try to get out to the community. And then WASIA, they're a group of solar installers doing the same thing. They're advocating solar from the solar installer side, and they do have good resources as well. So look for those resources to take advantage of them and benefit from what's there. So I'd just like to thank you for joining us today. I hope I didn't go too fast there, but there will be recording there for your reference in the future. And right now, I'm going to go ahead and hand things back to Patrick, answer some questions here, and we'll move on.
Jay, thank you very much. A lot of great information. Really appreciate it. And for everyone, what I did during Jay's presentation, I did, hopefully you see some links that I sent to you, a link to a page on our website of resources, questions that you can ask solar installers as you're considering going solar. I also emailed a link to the webinar recording that Jay mentioned that we had a couple of weeks ago on Solar Financing 101. So all you have to do is click those links, check it out. When you do click the link to the recording, it will ask you for your name and email address to access the recording, but it is free of charge. So, and feel free to share this information with others who you know.
Yeah.
And we do have some questions. Jay, I wanted to before I get to folks' questions, I do have a question rather. Is it something to consider about the how technology changes? I mean, does technology change fast enough or maybe slow enough to the extent that consumers should even worry about it or be concerned about it at all?
Right, this question comes up often, and I heard it quite a lot when the incentives were going to go away, or there's a change in, like, the federal tax credit will change here in a year and a half. And there's some really exciting technology out there, but it's all in the research and development stages. Anything that's in that stage, if they come up with an end solution saying, okay, now we have a product that we can develop and get to market, it's going to be 5 to 10 years before that product gets to market typically. I'm not in the world of bringing products to market. Other people may have better information on that or a little bit more exact or astute of an answer there. For things that are on the way though, better technology, we see every year solar panels themselves having higher wattage rate in the same package. So a standard size solar panel is about 65 inches high and 40 inches wide. And 5 years ago, it would have been about a 260 or 280 watt module. We're at about the same size for that, but now it's about 380 watts that they're putting into the same sized module. It's incremental. So if you were to get solar this year or say, oh, let's wait for next year for the latest and greatest and see if that really affects cost, it's going to be marginal. I don't think you're going to see a big difference in the short run. Right now, I think the biggest area we might see jumps in or drops in cost will be batteries. In the next 2 to 3 years, battery price should come down because demand is going up and storage is a hot topic. It's going to be a driver for technology probably for the next decade. I hear things about it stock market wise. I hear things about it just tech wise. So probably in the next 2 years, I think we'll see prices continue to drop in the battery area. So hopefully that's a good enough answer for right now. But if you have follow-up questions or something, please do follow up.
So I'll go to your questions or the audience's questions, starting with this one. Are there consultants who don't do installations who give an unbiased design that will provide a template for uniform bids?
Right, yeah. I don't know of any consultants that are out there who that's what they do. They help you really see what's there, because any installer you talk to, back of your mind, you know, hey, this person's going to be giving me their bias or even their experience. for myself as an installer, when I'm giving out quotes, I tend to use certain family of equipment, certain inverters, certain solar panels, and there could be something else out there that I'm not using that might be a better fit for the home of the person I'm talking to. We're always looking at what's out there and trying to find the best equipment. But as far as an independent consultant that does not represent the installer but can give you the information you need, I don't know of one. One thought might be, if you have a few questions that are just eating at you and you say, I really want to know, one tactic might be pick up the phone and call an installer in a different state. Call someone in Kansas and say, I have a question for you. Can you spare me 5 minutes? And say, I'm looking at solar, but I wanted to talk to an installer that has no skin in the game, and see what they say.
Interesting. Cool. Another question is it better to do ground mount if land is available, or roof mount? Cost, maintenance, etc.
Yeah, typically on cost, a ground mount will be a little bit more expensive because you have to build the material, the stand, the racking for the solar to go onto, versus the roof, which is there already that the solar will sit on top of. The ground mount advantage is that you can get it pointing as due south as possible, and you can get it to an optimal tilt. For this area, best producing tilt is roughly around 35 degrees. And then in winter time, you can clear off the snow. It's hard to get on the roof. I don't know if it's very safe either to clear snow from your panels, but that's one thing, that wintertime snow, you're able to clear those panels off. Or we have a lot of pollen in this area, hosing down the panels from time to time to just knock off the dust or pollen, helps them perform a little better. I'll preemptively answer a question if it's out there on cleaning the panels. Should you get them cleaned or take a lot of time to clean them? They get dirty pretty fast, and the cost of cleaning them doesn't always pay itself off in the small amount of efficiency that you gain with clean panels versus semi-clean panels. So
Another question, do you know of professional companies in the state of Washington who specialize in passive solar systems? Because we've been talking mainly about PV here.
right, we have been. And with passive systems, that can go two ways. I mean, there's solar thermal, and there are companies out there doing solar thermal, and that's your hot water systems, or radiant heat, or your hot water, heating a pool or something. But then there's also just building technology.
Well-deserved drink break.
Yeah, excuse me. With passive solar, you can look at using materials that will hold heat longer. I'm gonna do a quick story of a friend's house. Has a south-facing wall that's all glass and a long overhanging roof. In the wintertime, the sun shines through that glass, and there's a small room. It's only about 8 feet deep, and there's a large brick wall, or it's a rock wall, and that just soaks up the heat from the sun in the wintertime. That little atrium area is usually quite warm. At night, the heat radiates on both sides of this rock wall, and it helps to heat the house. The other side of the rock wall is the living room and kitchen area, and it reduces their heating cost. In the summertime, because of the long overhanging roof, the sun does not directly shine in. So when the days get hotter, it actually the roof shades the window to help avoid too much buildup of heat in the home. And that would be an example of passive technology just in the building supply or building side of things. I'm sure there's lots of other solar options as far as trying to capture the heat from the sun and using that in some way. Again, I focus on the PV side, so I could extrapolate some, but I'll stick for right now to my wheelhouse.
Oh, and by the way, Jay did provide a presentation just about a year ago, actually, a Solar 101 webinar. So that could also provide some good complementary information that Jay's providing today. and that I will send a link to that as well as the other recorded presentations that we've offered. Another question is, if you have a generator, can you skip on the battery cost? Is battery included in the system's costs rather listed on the various examples?
If for the most part, if you're doing solar and you want some sort of backup and you say, oh, I'm going to skip the batteries and just do a generator, you can. The solar would be connected on the utility side of your home's electrical system. So that way when the generator kicks in, it would be separated from the solar. There's a possibility, if we don't do that, that the solar energy produced would backfeed the generator and damage the generator. If you were to have batteries and a generator, quite often it's a good idea to go with a smaller battery bank, maybe enough to just keep those essential loads charged through the night. And then if there's not enough sun to recharge the battery or provide the power needed, or this is bad weather, however, the generator can be used much more efficiently. It can be used to recharge the battery, and then that battery will continue to supply the load. And then your generator isn't ramping up in its power production or ramping down as you turn lights on or off, or maybe you have a well pump and then you turn on the water and then the generator kicks in at a higher rate to provide power for that well pump. The battery will provide consistent power for all those loads, and when it needs the generator to recharge, the generator can run at its maximum efficient operating rate, recharge that battery and shut off, and maybe do that once a day versus at random or something. And it's healthier for the life of the generator as well. But yes, you can definitely get a better cost benefit by incorporating a generator.
Can you add batteries a year or two after the initial install?
Yes, batteries can be added really at any point that you like. There's probably, I would say there's two ways that this can happen. If you already have an existing installation or you're looking at an installation and you're not sure about batteries and you just want to stay with what we call a grid tied system that doesn't incorporate any batteries, that's going to be the lowest cost system. Then when you add batteries in the future, you'll likely add a second inverter. That inverter will manage the batteries, and then it can be incorporated with your solar system, so the solar can be used to charge the batteries as needed in the event of a power outage. Another option is if you're looking at adding solar and you want batteries in the future, you just want to wait a few years, or the cost works out better to wait, you can get an inverter that is set up that's battery ready. It's a hybrid inverter. It'll cost a little bit more than a standard grid tie inverter. There are micro inverter systems out there that operate the same way. You can get it set up where you can plan ahead for that battery bank and have some of the cost for the system up front when you first put in your solar. And then when it's time for those batteries, everything's ready and you don't need that second inverter necessarily to add the batteries.
We have time for a handful more questions, running up to about 6 o'clock. How does electricity rather from solar panels contribute to power from the power company? If there's excess power from panels, does it turn the power meter backwards? So I think we're talking about net metering.
Yes, that sounds just like it. So typically in a system, and they're generally designed this way too, for your home in the summertime, the goal is to produce a lot more energy than you need. Have that extra energy go to the utility. And yeah, if you were to have an old wheeled styled meter, you get to see it go backwards. We've seen this in some of our installations. A lot of utilities are now using digital meters, and you can see that measurement increase as solar is going to the grid. And those kilowatt hours are being credited to your utility account. In your billing, you should be able to see that, hey, maybe it's the month of July. My system produced so much energy. I used negative energy from the grid this month. I have credits build up and it'll show that. And then when winter comes and we don't get that much sun, the goal of all that extra production in the summer is to have those credits to cover your utility cost in the winter time. The utility is not a battery, but for the purpose of understanding it some, it's almost like you're taking your summer energy that's extra and treating the utility like a battery and saying, okay, hang on to this. In the wintertime, I'm going to use this, and that's when I'm going to need it. So you don't get paid though. They don't write you a check. It's just credited to your account. And then every year, I believe it's the 31st of March, they zero out the account and it starts fresh again.
A couple more questions. My roof has a very steep pitch. Will that matter? How will that impact an installation?
The pitch of the roof, I think it's about an 812 pitch, which is one of the best pitches as far as maximizing production. That's between 30, I think it's a 36-degree angle on the pitch there, and that's great, especially if it's south facing. Typically, the roof pitch of a home is going to be about a 512, so about 20, 25 degrees, depending. So it will affect it, but if you're worried about being a little bit steeper, there's an advantage there. You'll probably have better production and the snow won't stick as easily, so winter production will improve as well. If your roof is very flat, to look at the opposite type of pitch. There are ways, depending on the roof, but installers will look at tilting the panels up and to give it a little bit more of a southerly view so it can produce more energy as well.
So we'll do one more question. This one's kind of amusing. Are there panels tough enough for me to put in my backyard where my kids might hit them with a football?
Yeah. Typically, the panels should do pretty well with incidental contact of objects. Our company did an installation at a wastewater treatment plant, and there is kind of an elevated walkway that goes by the plant. And unfortunately, some people on the walkway thought it was a good idea to throw rocks at the solar panels. And a baseball-sized rock will damage a solar panel. And we've replaced probably 5 or 6 panels at that location over the last 2 or 3 years. I think they've gotten it through to people not to do that. It's really annoying. But yeah, I think for the most part, it would be okay. If you're out, softer things like a Nerf ball or something definitely would be fine. A soccer ball would probably be fine. There is a little bit of risk because I can't say for sure. The panels get tested to hurricane forced winds. They get tested to hail and rain and all kinds of different weather conditions so that they can withstand pretty severe weather. Yeah, a good hit baseball off a bat probably do some damage to a panel. It's just taking care to where that might be and what might be hitting the solar panel.
Well, that takes us up to just about 6 o'clock. I think we'll end it there. I know there are a couple of other questions, but I apologize for not being able to get to them all. But that should do it for today. Jay, thank you for your time and all of the effort you went into preparing this presentation today. So thank you very much.
If I can add one thing, and you might be saying this anyway, if we do have those questions that are unanswered, I will be glad to take a look at them and type up some answers, and maybe we can have something on the website, a file available. Patrick, I'm not sure if that's something that's possible, but if so, I'll be glad to make it happen.
Yeah, I have access to the questions, so we can go through the questions that have not been asked. So anyway, Jay, thank you. I want to thank everyone for attending this afternoon. Once again, I've sent a bunch of resources for you to check out. Just go to solarwa.org to find out about incentives, to find out about other consumer resources that will be helpful as you consider your decision down the road. As I said, a recording of this will be made available very soon in the next day or two, and I will send you all a link on how to access that recording. And again, if you've derived value from this presentation today and or our other presentations and other resources, please do consider donating to our nonprofit organization. We would greatly appreciate it. You can make a simple donation or simply become a member of the organization. Otherwise, that should do it for this evening. So Jay, thank you very much. Everyone, thank you very much for attending, and that should do it. So have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks for attending.
Take care.